Hey there, Squirrel Army! Wizards of the Coast has brought out some new starter commander decks, and I thought we would go through these decks and give them a precon upgrade, as they are, technically speaking, precon decks. They are mostly reprinted decks. There are a couple of cards here and there in the lists that are new cards and whatnot. I'm not 100% sure which ones they all are because I haven't really gone through it all and I can't remember every single card from every single set. But hey, there's a lot of cool cards in these decks. Obviously, these decks are pretty simple and basic. Not nearly as good as some of the other decks that they've sort of brought out. But this is a interesting deck, full flight, or first flight rather. And the commander is Isperia. I don't think Isperia is honestly the best commander for this deck. I mean, there could be a million commanders for this deck, but even within the precon list here, I noticed that we had where is he? Kangi, Skywarden. Kangi's such a better commander for this deck than Isperia. So that's just one of those things where you can choose what you want to do. If you want to keep the Sphinx, go with the Sphinx. But I think Kangi will just be a whole lot better for the flying tribal aspect. But anyway, I'm going to go through this list, take out a few cards, put a few other cards in and whatnot, and then come back with the upgraded list for this deck for you guys. If you're enjoying the content here, you can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing. The deck links will be down there in the description below if you guys want to check it out and see what's going on rather than actually reading through or hearing through all of this. Alright guys, so here we are. I've finished doing the deck list, got to 100 cards. Always like to make sure we've got 100 cards when we get to this point because, well, yeah, it kind of gets a little bit out of hand sometimes, but we've also come to our price. So that's pretty good as far as an upgraded price. Certainly pretty good, pretty budget deck here, here for today. So that's pretty good. I'll try to go through some of the cards as quickly as possible that I've sort of taken out. I will just say, for for dual lands and whatnot, I'm not going to really talk about them because they're all going to come under the same thing for the most part. They're just bad tap lands. So even just putting in a bunch of basics is just better. And yeah, I didn't even put in any real lands. I just decided to put in Fabled Passage and that was it. So I'm not really going to discuss that. So we're not going to spend too much time on the lands. Turtle. Just hexproof turtle. Your opponents have to attack each turn if able. That's fine, but honestly, we just don't really care. Like, we don't really want our opponents to attack us. We might want our opponents to attack some of our other opponents, but yeah, and it just isn't on theme. It's not a flyer. It doesn't really do a whole lot else for us. Whereas a lot of other cards like Biden Athasa, which does make opponents have to attack sometimes or whatnot, at least that draws us cards, or at least gives us help with our creatures and our plan. This just doesn't have any of that. Banishing Light, just too slow of removal, and I don't like it. I feel like, yeah, sure, you get those people who waste their removal on the enchantment, but sorcery speed removal is just always bad unless it's just board wipe material, so I just never like it. Gideon, just not very good in this deck. I don't think Gideon's good in this. Gideon specifically is good in any deck, but whatever. I'm not going to spend any time talking about him. He's just not really that worth time talking about. A Migratory Route can make some birds for us and can basic land cycle. I just think that we can get a whole lot more from a whole lot more other things than just drawing a card or making 4 birds for 5 mana. I think it's just too low of a rate. The Rally of the Wings, getting +2/+2 to all flyers is very good, especially at instant speed, but again, I'm not a huge fan of one-off effects. I'd rather get effects stacking up and continually getting those effects rather than just once off. Uh, Sky Diamond, just, we can find better mana rocks than what this is, so I just took it out. Plus, there's a bunch of mana rocks in here anyway, so that's fine. Sky Scanner, same sort of thing. I think we can just get better card draw, more consistent card draw. It is a flyer, which is nice, but again, we can just get more consistent card draw than this. So, yeah. Soul Snare, just, again, sorcery speed, removal for the most part. And it has to be attacking us. So, yeah, that extra restriction just kills it. Sphinx of Enlightenment. This one isn't too bad. It enters the battlefield, target opponent draws a card, and then we draw 3 cards. Mainly I took it out because it was a one-off thing, and I just wanted more things that were more consistent throughout more of the game, so I think that was one of the last ones that I did take out, but whatever. Sphinx's Revelation. I just don't like these one-off draw effects, so I just took it out. The Insight, this is very good for a very specific deck or a very specific combo or whatever, or if we were more going Voltron or something like that. But just as it is, I don't like auras for the most part anyway, because there's only a couple really good auras, because most of them are pretty bad. And this one's okay, but even then, it's not amazing, so I just thought we can take it out and get something else better in there. Storm Herd makes a whole bunch of Pegasus, where X is our life total. By the time we cast it, we're probably not going to actually get that many Pegasuses, and if we do, the game's kind of gone well for us anyway, so we don't really need those Pegasuses. It really doesn't help us enough to warrant that much of time, in my opinion. Vow of Duty, actually, not the vows, what's the other cards that are similar to this? I can't remember their names now. Impetus, the Impetuses, they're pretty good. But these vows, they're not very good. Like, if you're playing a Voltron deck, or if you're playing a goad your opponent's stuff deck, or buff your opponent's stuff deck, or whatnot, that sort of style of a deck, then maybe, yeah, but just not this deck. This is not the deck for this. Winged Words is not terrible, just draw 2 cards for 2 mana, but again, I'm just not a fan of this one-off type card draw. It's just not where I think we want to be. Alright, so we'll move on to what I added. One card that I did add was Storm of Souls, and this one's pretty darn good. We return all creature cards from our graveyard to the battlefield. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit with flying in addition to its other types, and then we exile it. We're a creature-based deck, and we do have some Wraths in here, so we can hit our own stuff with our Wraths and things like that. And we are, again, a creature deck. But also, we do care about flyers, so that really does help us out. But again, we're very vulnerable to removal. So we need to be able to recur our stuff in some form or fashion, and this does recur all of our stuff, pretty well. So that's well worth 6 mana to get all of our stuff back. And even, again, hopefully we'll get to the next turn and be able to, do something with that, but that's all you can do is sometimes hope, but it is what it is. I think Reconnaissance Mission was also another one that I added. Whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to player, we may draw a card and we can cycle it away for 2. So that's pretty useful. More card draw is always good. I think I only added 1 mana rock, which was Azorius Signet. Oh, actually, we already have an Azorius Signet in here. Whoops. Let's just add Mind Stone. There we go. Fix that little problem. There we go. Anyway, so now I've added a Mind Stone, not a Azorius Signet. Whoops. Oh well, whatever. that's fine. Oh, and a liquid metal talk. That was the only other cards that I added. Not really too much to say about there. Liquid metal talk can help us turn something into an artifact, which is pretty useful. And Mind Stone can be sacked to draw a card, which again, kind of useful. When you have mana rocks late game, you kind of want to just pitch them for more cards. So that's what happened there. I think we only added one card here into the instance. Pretty sure, yeah, we only added one card into the instance, which was Resculpt, exile a creature or artifact, and its controller gets a 4/4. So that's alright. Gets rid of something really annoying for us. There's a few cards that are here that are kind of expensive, like Battle Angels of Tyre. That's probably one of the more expensive cards that I did add. It's a fairly useful card, though. When it attacks, it has Myriad, so we get a copy of it for each opponent, and that's tapped and attacking those players. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we draw a card if that player has more cards in hand. Then we create a treasure token if that player has more lands than us. Then we gain 3 life if that player has more life than other players. So that's pretty useful to get those things. The life is the least relevant most often. Catching up in cards and catching up in mana is what we want the most, but those other things, the life is still there and still can be useful. The Herald, he's pretty good. I think we don't have that many legendaries. We do have a few, but whenever we cast a non-legendary creature spell with flying, we may copy it, except it's a 1/1 spirit in addition to its other types. Do it only once per turn, but still, that's alright. We get a copy of something. If we get something fairly big and powerful, or even something that helps us buff the rest of our team, that's really useful. The Dream Trawler, flying and lifelink, when we draw a card, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Whenever it attacks, we draw a card, and we can discard a card to give it hexproof and tap it. So, very powerful card. Gets to be a 5/5 when it attacks, at least without any other buffs and whatnot. So, yeah, and it helps us draw cards and things like that. So, pretty useful. What else? Did I add this? I think I added this. I think this was an ad. The Skybonder, creatures you control with flying have spells your opponents cast that target this creature cost 2 more to cast, so basically giving our stuff ward, so that does protect our stuff. Everyone kind of forgets about ward and how powerful it is and how annoying it is until it's there and you got to deal with it. So yeah, it's pretty useful. The Glass Spinner, I think this is great. The first spell that targets any of our stuff gets countered. Spell or ability. So even to fairy bouncing or whatever, any kind of planeswalker bouncing or whatnot, ping damage type things and whatnot, those abilities just get countered. So that's really useful sometimes. Loyal Drake. At the beginning of combat on our turn, if we control a commander, we draw a card. We have pretty easy access to our commander, no matter which commander we've got, so that will happen. Plus it's a 2/2 flyer, that's fine. And then we have a Modi. When it deals combat damage to a player, we take an extra turn after this one, or extra combat after this one. He can't eject during the extra combats and whatnot, or extra turns, whatever it is. But that's fine. We don't really care. We're just interested in getting those extra combats. We're an aggro deck for the most part. We need to hit people. The Hawk, or Scouting Hawk, enters the battlefield. If an opponent controls more lands than we search our library for a plains card, put it into the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. It is a one-off, and I don't love those, but this is at least ramp. So I think we can get away with that. That's fine. Shiny, Eye of the Storm, attacks. We scry X, where X is the number of attacking creatures we control with flying, so we can just scry a heck of a lot in this deck. And that can help us set up our draws and whatnot, and things like that. When we do hit, because there's a lot of things that say when we hit, we draw cards, etc. So that could be really powerful, knowing what's coming and whatnot, or knowing, hey, well, our board's looking kind of threatening or whatnot. We might want to hope to find something that will protect our board or recur our board or whatever, things like that. So really useful. The Watcher, non-token creatures we control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. The buff is nice and the vigilance is nice, so both of those pretty nice for what we're trying to do, and it's a vigilance flyer, so that's just fine. Not the most powerful, but still pretty good. Windstorm Drake, other creatures that we control with flying get +1/+0, so buffing up our stuff again, that's really useful. We're an aggro deck, we need damage in the air to kill people. And Zarium, whenever he deals combat damage for the most part, we make a 2/2 Griffin, or when those Griffins deal combat damage, we make a 2/2 Griffin with flying. So we get lots of flyers in the air, and we dominate the skies with him. So that's where we're going with all of this. So this is a pretty basic deck, pretty good deck, I think, and it's a pretty interesting deck, but yes. But anyway, yes, that is the list there for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one, and hope to see you again in the next one.